If you've ever started to feel frustrated with a friend over something that didn't seem like a big deal at first, but started to feel bigger over time, you're not alone. Because resentment in friendships doesn't come from one single statement, one single action, or one single moment. It's things that quietly build up over time that go unspoken. Today, we are going to talk about how resentment builds in friendships so you can recognize it earlier so it doesn't change your view of the relationship. And one of the ways this builds is when you start reacting differently to things that never used to bother you. It doesn't start out as resentment. It starts out in little small moments. Maybe somebody makes a statement. Maybe it's a certain action, something they said or something they did. And it's not anything that maybe used to bother you previously. Maybe a similar statement or action was made at another time and it was nothing that even affected you at all, right? And then but now it feels like it's hitting you differently, maybe bothering you a little bit. Maybe you start to feel slight disappointments in your friend or in the friendship as a whole, maybe certain actions or statements that are being made, right? And so you start feeling a little small disappointments happening in the friendship. But yet you think to yourself, this isn't a big deal. This is not a big deal. I am just going to brush this off, right? So, an action, a statement, even though it feels like it's hitting you differently than it used to, you're just going to go ahead and say, "Okay, that's just me. I'm just going to brush this off." But that feeling is still there. And then it starts to go unspoken, right? You don't bring it up. You don't bring it up. You don't let them know you felt irritated at it. You didn't bring it up because sometimes it's just, I'm just going to brush this off because you assume it will pass. You assume maybe it was a one time thing. Maybe I could have been overreacting. And so just these little things that kind of start irritating you one by one, you brush them off. You don't want to make a big thing out of it, right? You just want to kind of let it go, thinking that these things will pass. And that's kind of when it starts to build if it continues to happen. So these things, little different things in your friendship you notice that are just starting to irritate you a little bit, maybe make you feel a little resentful of someone for something. And at first you don't say anything, but then these feelings continuously build and you continue to not say anything. And this is the point where you start maybe to build some resentment toward that person. And once that happens, when you start feeling these things build up and that resentment building, then sometimes the meaning of those statements or those actions, you feel like the meaning of those is changing. Like maybe now it feels intentional. Your friend is saying these certain things or acting this certain way, and it's almost you start to feel like they're doing it to intentionally hurt you. That's when you know that it's turning into some type of resentment in the friendship. When you feel hurt or like they're intentionally doing things to hurt you or make you feel uncomfortable in some sort of way. It may even feel like you think they are trying to also like slight you in some manner. So all of these feelings, you feel like they're doing it intentional, like they're slighting you. These are indicators that you are feeling some type of resentment toward this person and it's starting to build up in your relationship. One of the biggest signs of when that resentment has built and is showing itself to you is when your internal tone starts to shift. You are starting now to react and present yourself in a way that reflects that resentment that you feel. And this can be a very important turning point in this friendship because the resentment has now built up internally for you, and you are just naturally going to react to that resentment. And so your tone with your friend or some other relationship kind of starts to shift. Maybe you start becoming a little bit defensive in your conversations, but there's some type of internal tone shift there. And this is a major turning point. When that internal shift happens, some things might begin to change. You might have less openness with your friend. You don't want to be as open with them as you used to be it heavy conversations, more frequent conversations, or just, those deeper ones about important things that are happening in each other's lives. You feel a little bit reluctant to have those conversations with them. And you find yourself having less patience with that person than you used to. Like things that would normally not bother you, all of a sudden, everything starts to bother you. Whereas in the beginning, before the resentment built up, might be one statement, one action. But now you notice that almost everything, every interaction with them, you walk away feeling a little bit bothered by something they said or did. And another way to tell that distance has formed is you feel less emotional safety with them. You are less willing to be as open with them as you used to be. You feel less safe sharing your feelings and your concerns and things like this with them. And that's when you know that the friendship feels different. So you can tell there was distance by, the less openness, less emotional safety, less patience. And that's when you really are like, wow, this friendship really feels different than it used to be. And over time, it's everything that's quietly been adding up, not just one thing. First, it started with an action or a sentence. Then you started to feel that building more and more. Then you started to feel some type of internal struggle with it, right? You felt the friendship changing. And now it's at a point where you can tell the friendship has changed, the tone of the friendship has changed, and you realize that this has been building for a while. It wasn't one thing that built up all of this resentment. Resentment grows over time, and most often from things that have gone unspoken. Because again, that one thing that used to never bother you started bothering you. And then it's kind of like a snowball effect sometimes from there. And when this starts to happen, it really can quietly change how you see the friendship and feel the friendship without either person really understanding why one of you or both of you feels this way. And if you really value this friendship and you really value this person in your life, when you start to notice it happening, it's a sign to maybe take a pause, take a closer look before it continues to build in ways you don't fully see yet. And that is very important. Sometimes we can't see the full picture right away. That's why it's important to take a pause when we notice this resentment and we notice things have changed since the resentment has started building before it gets to that point where it might not be repairable. And if you've ever found yourself wondering what to do when a friendship does start to feel different, we talked about that in a previous video, and you can watch it right here. See you in the next one. Peace.